back to another Fantasy Football Power Rankings video. I'm your host and league commissioner Trent, and let's get started with some playoff scenarios. As you see here, if James wins, he clinches a playoff spot, as well with me. If I win, I clinch a playoff spot. 8 wins is pretty much going to get you in the playoffs. So that's what me and James needs to do in order to clinch our playoff spot. Go down here, we have Andrew and Dakota pretty much with the same scenarios. They're eliminated with a loss and a Brendan and Noah win. So if Brendan and Noah lose and Andrew and Dakota lose, they technically still have a shot because they're only 2 games back of both Brendan and Noah, who hold the last 2 playoff spots. So they're going to have to get their points up. I believe Dakota is in front of Brendan in points. But yeah, no, they still have a shot. So both of them are eliminated with a loss and a Brendan win and Noah win. So Brendan and Noah both have to win, and Andrew and Dakota have to lose in order for Dakota and Andrew to be eliminated from playoff contention. So it's going to be a tight race. It should be fun to watch and to look out for. All right, now let's get to it. The fun part of the show. Here are your Week 10 bums. At number 3, we have Russell Wilson with 9.92 points. That Rams defense absolutely tore him up. There was nothing he can really do. 9.92 points for Russell Wilson. I believe that is a season low here for Russell Wilson. Dakota's things are not looking good for Dakota right now, and Russell Wilson sure isn't helping him. 3 total turnovers for Russell Wilson in this game, Week 10 against the Rams. Coming in at the number 2 spot, we have the Ravens defense. Oh man, all they needed was 1 turnover and they could have gotten James the win. Just unbelievable. I can't believe that they even allowed that to happen. But I'll get more into that game later. But yeah, Ravens are number 2 on your Week 10 bums. Coming in at the number 1 spot on your Week 10 bums, we have DK Metcalf. 2 catches for 28 yards. I mean, it is tough when Ramsey's covering you, but you got to get a couple more points than that. Greg could have had the win if Metcalf was able to even get a couple more catches. He would have probably given Greg the win. So just a big choke right there by DK Metcalf, and did not help Greg at all pretty much. Now it is time for your Week 10 studs. Let's get right into it. At number 3, we have DeAndre Hopkins, and you guys all know why. There was a couple more people with more points than him, but come on, man. That catch is just... that solidifies you as a stud, in my opinion. I mean, he still had 7 catches for a touchdown, 127 yards. So he's still dominating against a pretty decent defense too. So I mean, that catch just automatically put him on the studs list for this week. So yeah, definitely helped Noah get a much needed victory as well. Coming in at the number 2 spot, we have Alvin Kamara, and Kamara could have been higher on this list, potentially number 1 if he didn't only have 15 rushing yards. He had 3 touchdowns, which is where most of his points came from. He also had 7 receptions at 83 receiving yards. But I honestly didn't watch that game, but 15 rushing yards. I know Drew Brees left the game due to injury, but I mean, you would expect the ball to go to Kamara more with Jameis Winston in there. Just to take some pressure off of him. But yeah, Alvin Kamara still a solid performance though. You're number 2 on Week 10 studs. At the number 1 spot, we have Tom Brady with 31.84 points. And it seems like every time I put Tom Brady on the bums list, the next week he drops a 30 bomb. I believe that's either the second or third time that's happened. So I don't think I could put Tom Brady on the bums list anymore, even if he is bumming it out, because I don't want Brian to do good. So we're both battling for bye weeks here. But Tom Brady, 341 yards and 3 passing touchdowns. He also had a solid 2 rushing yards. Oh man, he's the GOAT for a reason, man. Those rushing yards will really kill you. But he is your number one stud of the week. Now, it's time for your week 11 power rankings. Let's get right into it. At number 10, we have Andrew. He got the win last week by the tip of his toenails, and he's got a tough matchup against one of the top teams in the league this week, which is me. Um, yeah, man, Andrew has a solid roster. I mean, fantasy production wise, his team has been performing better than they were earlier in the season. I mean, if you ask me, he's just got to put the right pieces together to try and save his season. This could be his last week competing for a playoff spot. Um, and it is going to be a tough week for him, I will say, because my team is pretty good. As you saw last week, I'm pretty much the best. But Andrew's got a tough test this coming up week in order to save his season. Coming in at the number 9 spot, we have Dakota. Same exact situation with Dakota, except for I think he's in a worse situation than Andrew. Um, just what is Russell Wilson doing, man? He's not. He's supposed to be helping Dakota save his season, and he's not. And it doesn't help that Dakota doesn't have any actual like number one running backs. He owns everybody that's in a timeshare. So um, it'll be tough. See if his wide receivers can step up, because I think if his wide receivers step up, he should be in good shape to win this game against Levi, who's also battling for one of the last playoff spots. All these bottom tier teams are pretty much fighting over the 5th and 6th seed. They might be able to sneak in and get a higher seed, like 4th or 3rd. I mean, but that's pretty much a long shot at this point. So Dakota's in pretty much the same position as Andrew. It's just a tough situation for them to be in, and it's one that no fantasy owner wants to be a part of. So we'll see if he can save his season this week. At the number 8 spot, we have Levi, and Levi is pretty much safe from elimination this week. One game above Dakota and Andrew, so even if he loses, he's still got a shot, and he's only one game behind the 5th and 6th seeds. So it's going to be tough. He does get Julio Jones and Ezekiel Elliott back this week, which I think can play a big part. He's going against Dakota, so it should be a good matchup between two teams trying to save their season. Um, he does have Aaron Rodgers against the number one fantasy defense, though, so that's going to be a tough matchup for Levi. But I think he has the pieces to pull out the win against Dakota's underperforming team, or I should say his disappointments, as he calls him. Levi really needs Chris Carson back, just so he has a reliable flex, because you don't bench Ezekiel Elliott. He's pretty much going to start Ronald Jones, and then you have Chris Carson. That's 3 quality running backs right there that he can start. But we'll see what the deal with Chris Carson is and if he plays on Thursday. If so, I think Levi plays him, but we'll see. We'll see if Levi can defeat Dakota and maybe eliminate him from playoffs. In at the number 7 spot, it's a little controversial. I have Brendan here at number 7. Um, as I'm looking at his lineup right now, I just remembered that he put Winston and Taysom Hill in, so it's honestly so funny. But yeah, no, he has the pieces to be a solid team, but they just underperform every single week. Nick Chubb is back though. I mean, Nick Chubb would have had like 24 points if he did not step out of the one. Finished with 18. Brendan could have used that extra touchdown last week too. Would have probably. I think it would have given him the win. I think he only lost by like 3 points. So if Nick Chubb scores that touchdown, it gives him the win. And we're not talking about Brendan being at number 7, but Josh Jacobs finally had another solid week. He hasn't had a solid week in a fat minute. I think since like week 5 or something. So DJ Moore is struggling, and now with Bridgewater hurt, who knows what DJ Moore's production is going to look like. This is a team that needs receivers badly. So we'll see what happens and if Brendan makes any moves before the trade deadline. But he's in a tough spot right now. He is sitting at the sixth seed at the moment. After the loss to Daniel, Daniel is slowly inching up on him for a playoff spot. We'll see if Brendan could hold on though, and if he can clutch up and save his season. Speaking of the team that is creeping up on him, at number 6 I have Daniel. Dalvin Cook is going to continue to be the star of this team. Daniel does have Allen Robinson on bye, but it shouldn't be a problem because he already has Chris Godwin in his flex, and you can just move him up. But with the number 1 scoring defense going up against Aaron Rodgers, that could be one to watch out for. We'll see who he decides to roll with at quarterback this week. He is Big Ben and Carson Wentz. I mean, you thought Carson Wentz would be reliable last week, but he absolutely wasn't. Eagles just aren't reliable fantasy option unless you have Miles Sanders, honestly. So my bet is he rolls with Big Ben this week again against a favorable matchup against Jacksonville. But Dalvin Cook is going to continue to do his thing, and he is a great matchup against Dallas this week. We don't know if Mixon is going to be back. He hasn't been practicing this week. I assumed Mixon would be back this week, but it does not look like it. But he does have his handcuff in Giovanni Bernard, and he also has Waller, who is the second ranked tight end right now in fantasy points. So things are looking good for Daniel, and we'll see if the defending champ can make a late season playoff push and get back into the race. Coming in at the number 5 spot, I have Noah, and this is a team that is looking very scary heading into the final stretch of this season here. I mean, they're almost fully healthy. He does have Diggs and Bears defense on bye, which could like stunt his run a little bit, but this team is almost fully healthy. Eckler should be back in, I think, a week or two. I think week 13 is what I heard. David Johnson just get put on IR, who was not that bad of an option for Noah for the time being, but with Miles Sanders back and Thielen back and Hopkins, his team is looking pretty dangerous right now, and this is a team that could possibly, we're talking about stealing a bye week, honestly. He pretty much has to win out to do that, but I could see it happening. But we'll see. We'll see what goes on with the other top teams in the league. There's about 4 or 5 teams right now fighting for a bye week. They're all within a game of each other, pretty much. So it's going to be fun to watch and fun to see how everything plays out. But we'll see if Noah can keep the ball rolling and have another big week. Coming in at the number 4 spot, I have Greg. Greg is one of those teams I was just talking about, stealing a bye week. I mean, if he can win out and have a whole bunch of things go his way, I mean, he can easily steal the second seed with 9 wins, maybe even the first, depending on how things go. I mean, points is definitely going to be a factor. But Kyler Murray, I mean, talk about your favorable MVP candidate. If I had to place my money on it, it would have to be Kyler Murray, absolutely carrying Greg just like Lamar carried me last year, you know. But the running back is an issue for Greg. His wide receivers are solid. Like, he doesn't even have to worry about that position. But the running backs, I mean, if he wants to win in the playoffs, he's going to need to get some production from one of those running backs. Kareem Hunt has been really, really reliable. But Kenyon Drake is just, oof, what a horrible pick, man. I don't know what they're doing down there. He's getting the volume, but it's just not equating to fantasy points unless he gets a touchdown. So we'll have to see. Saints defense was pretty solid for him last week. I don't think they keep that up, though. We'll have to see. That their defense honestly isn't that bad, but it is a division matchup against Atlanta, so we'll have to see how that plays out. Divisional matchups are always tough to tell. His bench, though, is going to need some work. If one of his starters goes out, I mean, you're pretty much losing production in your starting lineup by putting someone from his bench in. He doesn't have the pieces that would be reliable in that situation to put up the same amount of points. I guess that's why they're on the bench to begin with, but still, Greg's in a good position to grab a playoff spot right now, and if he wins this week, that will certainly help the case. In at number 3, we have Brian. Brian's been stuck at this 3 spot for a while now. He does have some tough matchups for his players coming up, and Devonte Adams honestly might not even play this week, which could. I mean, this is a team that's really looking at grabbing a bye with Kamara, Brady, and Adams. Um, this is a bye week team right here, and Devonte Adams not playing could blow his chances at it. I mean, you can't lose any more games from here on out. I mean, if you want to buy, you got to win. Um, and Kamara too is battling with an injury, but I don't think that one's as big as the one that Devonte Adams is dealing with. Pretty sure Kamara is still playing, um, but we'll have to see. He does have Brady and Evans going on Monday night, so that should be a fun game to watch. I mean, it's probably gonna determine if Brian wins or not, that Monday night game. So we'll see. And it doesn't look like Galladay's coming back this week. So that's just another option out if Adams is out for Brian. Um, but we'll have to see what he does with his lineup. It is not set yet. He still has Ingram and Ayuk on bye set there. So he'll just have to fix that. And we'll see what happens. We'll see if Brian can keep up pace with me and James. In at the number 2 spot, I have James. Oh man, James, that was a great freaking game that we just had last week. The closest game in our league history by .02. That's half a passing yard pretty much. It truly is a game of inches. Um, you get .04 for one passing yard. So I mean, he pretty much just lost by one passing yard. We both had players on bye. Um, I just ended up being the better team, I guess. I mean, that Ravens defense absolutely killed him. But he has his players back from bye. He has his main players, Mahomes and Kelsey. That stack is looking pretty good heading into playoffs. Um, he's gonna need another running back though. We don't know if Bell's gonna be reliable for him come late in the season. And right now it looks like he has Kalen Ballage as his running back too, which is not that bad of an option. I mean, Ballage has been doing some good stuff with the Chargers. Um, his wide receiver, this is just a solid roster. I think me and James both have a pretty even roster. Um, but we'll see. I mean, I can see me and James just finishing out the season and just getting the buys. But you never know with fantasy, and that's the fun thing about it is, um, for all we know, both of us could lose out, or a whole bunch of stuff can happen. So we'll see what James can do, and if his roster can bounce back. Coming in at the number 1 spot is me. You guys are welcome. I dethroned James from the top, um, from the top rope. By .02, which is just insane. He was on a 5-game winning streak. Um, I would like to thank the Ravens defense for clutching up for me. I appreciate it because Lamar Jackson sure hasn't. So I mean, the defense has to do something for me. But seriously, it was a really good game and probably the most fun I've had watching a fantasy football matchup. Sounds corny as hell. But no, my team's really solid. I feel like we're in great shape right now to grab a first round bye, which is what I'm shooting for. That's honestly all I want. I don't want to get first rounded in the playoffs, because that would honestly suck. But yeah, no, I have some decent matchups this week, and with McCaffrey out, I got to keep relying on James Robinson and the Jaguars. I mean, Robinson's not a bad player to rely on. I mean, he's like fourth or third, I believe, in running back points. So I mean, he has a tough matchup against the Steelers. I just don't want to be relying on Jaguars players to win me games. So it'd be nice if McCaffrey was back, but it's not happening this week. So we'll see if my team can manage to get another win. It's getting tougher and tougher as the season moves on without McCaffrey. He needs to stop getting hurt. Um, but yeah, no, I see myself finishing with a first round bye. I just think it happens. Um, I have a pretty solid team that I'm confident in, and we'll have to see how it goes. So now it's time for your Week 11 game of the week. We have number 5 Noah versus number 6 Daniel. There's another good matchup. I believe James and Brian are squaring off this week, but I wanted to put someone in game of the week with playoff scenarios on the line and with people who haven't really been game of the week this season because it's usually been like the same 4 or 5 guys. But the matchups we're looking for are Miles Sanders versus Dalvin Cook, DeAndre Hopkins versus A.J. Brown, and Mark Andrews versus Darren Waller. It's going to be a key matchup. I believe it comes down to DeAndre Hopkins versus A.J. Brown. This is a solid wide receiver matchup that should be fun to watch. Hopkins does have the easier matchup against Seattle's horrid defense, but I believe A.J. Brown could get going against a tough Baltimore defense. And I can honestly see Daniel, winning this matchup. Whoever wins this matchup is pretty much going to be locked into 5th or 6th seed going into the final 2 games of the season. I shouldn't have said locked in. It makes it seem like they clinched the playoff spot. But no, whoever wins this matchup is pretty much going to be in that spot for the next week until next week's matchups are played. I mean, if you're a player, you love seeing that you're in that spot because that means all you have to do is just win. You just win out and you hold on to that spot. So, or maybe even get a better spot. So it is a big matchup. I believe it's deserving of game of the week. So we'll see how it goes. Should be a fun one. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed. And as always, keep on grinding. Season ain't over yet. Keep going. I just wanted you to watch me 'cause I'll slowly